It was supposed to be a perfect night. Boston's Gillette Stadium was packed. 55,000 people, all gathered for one reason: Coldplay. Lights glittered like stars under a summer sky, and the energy in the crowd crackled with that rare kind of magic only live music can create. Chris Martin's voice was a bomb, smooth and soaring, washing over the fans like waves on the shore. The stage glowed. Cell phones lit up the sea of people, lovers leaned on shoulders, teens climbed onto their friends' backs, and strangers swayed in rhythm with strangers. It was pure. It was euphoric. And then it happened. Kiss Cam flashed across the Jumbotron. A wave of giggles and excited screams rippled through the crowd as the camera started its slow search, zooming in on couple after couple. A bashful peck here, an over-the-top smooch there. People laughed, clapped, and cheered. It was innocent. It was tradition. Until it was and single quotes T. The camera stopped on a man and woman in section 214. Row C, their bodies close. His arm draped around her shoulders, her hand resting lightly on his thigh. They were mid-conversation, heads turned inward, clearly comfortable, clearly connected. But as soon as they realized they were on the screen broadcast to tens of thousands, they froze. Not in the cute, awkward, playful way most couples do, no. This was different. The man jerked slightly. The woman looked away too quickly. The camera lingered for a few seconds, and sure, they didn't smile, they didn't wave, they didn't kiss, and that's when Chris Martin's voice cut in, over the mic, light-hearted, innocent, or at least, it seemed that way. I think they're either really shy, or maybe having an affair. He teased, laughing as the crowd burst into whoops and gasps. The comment hit the air like lightning. People laughed, sure. But in the shadows, a seed had been planted. Something didn't add up. That reaction too rigid. That glance too guilty. And within minutes, TikToks popped up. Clips of the moment, the awkward dodge, Chris Martin's off-the-cuff joke, the silence, the tension. And within an hour, the internet was ablaze. Wait, is that Andy Byron? It took one Twitter user. Just one. The angle of the clip. The frame-by-frame zoom in. The facial recognition, a plugin someone used, a few LinkedIn comparisons. And there it was. Andy Byron, CEO of Astronomer, a billion-dollar data company, tech darling of the venture. Capital world, married, father of two. The woman sitting beside him, not his wife, not even close. It didn't take long before the crowdsourced investigation revealed her identity. Kristen Cabot, the company's chief people officer. Recently hired, recently divorced, recently spotted on Byron's arm, or more. Specifically, under a dot by midnight, the Kiss Cam clip had over 6 million views on X, formerly known as Twitter. Memes flooded Instagram. Coldplay caught cam trended on TikTok. LinkedIn sleuths went wild. Reddit threads broke down the body language frame by frame. And suddenly, what had been a joke from the stage, a throwaway one-liner, was now a full-blown scandal with real consequences. Real marriages, real jobs, real reputations, and behind it all, a stadium kiss cam, a perfectly timed joke, and to people who thought they were just part of the crowd. But the crowd was watching, the world was watching. And no one was ready for what would come next. By sunrise, the story had mutated into something larger than scandal. It became spectacle. It became sport. What began as one couple caught on a stadium screen had now spiraled into a full-blown internet crime scene. The digital detectives had finished their night shift. Now came the journalists, the gossip blogs, the brand reputation analysts, the boardroom whisperers. Andy Byron's face was everywhere. His LinkedIn profile, once a perfectly curated showcase of success, was now a battlefield. Comments flooded in, snarky gifs, quote tweets. Someone posted a screenshot. His title, CEO at Astronomer, stamped directly beneath the Coldplay Kiss Cam freeze frame. Someone else found a corporate press photo where Kristen Cabot stood beside him during Astronomer's last Series C funding announcement. The caption was pure internet venom. Plot twist. The stars weren't the only thing aligned. It was brutal, merciless, viral. But while the public joked, behind the scenes, things were unraveling fast. Astronomers' communications team was blindsided. Midnight Slack pings, escalations to legal. HR scrambling to draft talking points. The PR firm on retainer flagged it as critical severity. Their founder texted, "Do not post anything until we talk." Byron's personal phone didn't stop ringing. His wife, Megan, had seen the clip. She didn't need an explanation. His face, his arm, his smile. It told her everything. The intimacy wasn't speculative. It was real. And Kristen, her inbox was worse. As chief people officer, she was supposed to enforce the very ethical boundaries she'd now crossed. Her photo disappeared from astronomers' website overnight. Internally, Slack channels whispered like wildfire. The hashtag off-topic thread was a minefield of memes and half-serious speculations. One employee anonymously posted, "So who's handling HR now? Asking for a friend." The company tried to go quiet. No tweets, no comments. But silence in a storm sounds louder than thunder. By noon, dozens of media outlets picked up the clip. Vanity Fair, People, The Washington Post. The headlines weren't kind. Tech CEO caught in alleged affair after Coldplay's Kiss Cam goes viral. Chris Martin accidentally outs executive scandal. Live on stage astronomer faces PR nightmare after Kiss Cam revelation. And perhaps the most chilling of them all, astronomer CEO disappears from LinkedIn because he did. Sometime during the chaos, Andy Byron quietly deleted his LinkedIn. No statement, no defense. Just a digital vanishing act, like a ghost retreating into the shadows. And that's when people really started paying attention. This wasn't a rumor anymore. This was real. Back in Boston, where the scandal began, fans returned to the stadium. The following night, Coldplay had another show to play, and Chris Martin. He couldn't ignore it. As the Kiss Cam segment returned, the audience held its breath. And then Chris spoke into the mic with a nervous laugh. "Let's try not to get anyone in trouble tonight, shall we?" It was meant to lighten the mood. But it only added to the mythology. The man who inadvertently cracked open an executive scandal was now trying to put the genie back in the bottle. But the damage was already done. And the fallout was just beginning. You know what happens after a bomb goes off. Silence, not the kind that comforts, the kind that screams. That's what it felt like at Astronomer the day after the Coldplay concert. The Slack emojis were gone. The Zoom cameras stayed off. And the usual cadence of Happy Monday or stand-up in 5 was replaced by one shared, unspoken panic. What happens now? Inside the C-suite war room, virtually patched in from home offices, legal advisors, board members, and communications specialists sat in damage control mode. Eyes darted across screens. Everyone danced around the question no one wanted to ask out loud. Had their CEO just publicly detonated the company's credibility? Someone had already drafted a bland, sterile internal email. You know the kind. "We are aware of an incident involving members of our executive team and are taking this matter seriously." It was too vague, too cold. It didn't answer the one thing everyone in that building and outside of it wanted to know. Was it real? And if so, how long had it been going on? No one had answers, but they had theories. A few engineers started whispering about a queue to off-site in Denver. Andy and Kristen had arrived late to a group dinner together. Someone swore they'd seen them sharing a bottle of wine, just the two of them, by the fire pit afterward. Another person said Kristen had joined the company straight from a competitor, with Andy personally handling her recruitment. Too hands-on. In hindsight, there were not two timelines unfolding at once, the public narrative and the internal unraveling, and both were on fire. Andy didn't show up for work the next day. Not that anyone expected him to, but that didn't stop his name from trending for the third day in a row. #astronomer affair #COLDPLAY CEO scandal. He didn't issue a statement. No apology, no clarification. And that vacuum, it invited chaos. Fake statement began circulating on social media claiming to be from Andy, filled with references to Coldplay lyrics. It ended with a twisted sign-off. Nobody said it was easy. People thought it was real. It wasn't. Astronomer had to post an official notice just to deny it. That was the level of absurdity this had reached. Meanwhile, Kristen deactivated her Twitter. Her Instagram went private. Someone screen-capped an old photo of her and her ex-husband on vacation in Portugal captioned "Stargazing with my universe." The irony was too rich for the internet to ignore. Her name started appearing in think pieces. The ethics of office romance in the power hierarchy. Can HR be held accountable when they are the problem? And more than one headline dubbed her the people officer without boundaries. But perhaps the cruelest blows weren't online, they were personal. Andy's wife, Megan, hadn't said a word publicly, but her actions spoke volumes. She removed Byron from her Facebook, changed her profile picture to one without him. A friend of hers posted cryptically, "Sometimes rock bottom is where you build from." The couple had been married 12 years. 2 kids, suburban house, golden retriever, PTA meetings. Soccer practice. Gone. Just like that. And while public interest in the story snowballed, people started asking deeper questions. Why was Kristen, the head of human resources, allowed to be involved with the CEO? Was this a first offense, or just the first time it had been caught on camera? And if it hadn't been for a concert, would anyone have ever known? Internally, HR opened a formal review, which was bizarre, considering the head of HR was one half of the investigation. They brought in a third-party firm to handle the probe. No one felt confident about it. The jokes turned darker. One engineer wrote, "Imagine HR scheduling your disciplinary meeting with the same person they're investigating." The board held an emergency meeting. They couldn't fire Andy outright, not yet. Not without a review, but the pressure was immense. Investors were calling. Clients were asking questions. Big contracts were suddenly under reconsideration. So they did what scared boards always do. They placed Andy Byron on indefinite leave pending the outcome of an internal investigation. A clean way of saying, "We're putting this on pause until the internet moves on." They appointed Pete DeJoy, the company's co-founder and chief product officer, as interim CEO. Pete was liked, trusted, quiet, and most importantly untouched by scandal. But even he knew this wasn't a transition. It was a public autopsy. Chris Martin, meanwhile, kept performing. The Coldplay tour moved on to Toronto, then Chicago. He made another Kiss Cam joke in Montreal. "Let's try not to expose any scandals this time, they." It got a laugh, but some fans felt it was too soon. Others argued he did nothing wrong. After all, he couldn't have known. It was just a joke. But intent doesn't matter when consequences echo. This lad. Somewhere under all the layers of tabloid fire and corporate dread was a truth nobody wanted to say aloud. What broke this wasn't the affair. It was the exposure. The lighting, the angle. The timing. Had they sat just one row back? Had the camera caught someone else? Had the stadium crew picked a different section? None of this would have happened. There'd be no headlines. No suspensions. No marriage collapses. No viral HASHDAGS. But fate has a sense of irony. And when it's your turn under the lights, there's no pausing the reel. No second take. No PR filter. Just a stadium full of eyes. And one screen. Burning your secrets into the stars. You know the sound a company makes when it tries to swallow a scandal. It's not loud. It's not even noticeable at first. It's in the hesitation before sending a Slack message. The stifled silence on Zoom calls. The way people glance away in the break room mid-conversation. Like the air just changed, but no one's sure why. Astronomer was drowning in that silence. Andy Byron, their once uncheckable CEO, was gone, at least officially on leave. Kristen Cabot had disappeared entirely. Her name scrubbed from the company's site, her access revoked. Word got around that she'd chosen to pursue other opportunities, which is the corporate version of being buried quietly under the floorboards. The Investigation was still technically ongoing, but nobody cared anymore. Not really. The verdict had already been written by the press, by the public, by employees themselves. The only people still pretending it wasn't a scandal were the ones writing the press releases. Outside the building, it looked like a shake-up. Inside, it was a funeral. It's hard to explain what betrayal feels like when it comes from the top. Employees at Astronomer had bought into the dream. This wasn't just a job, it was a mission. A startup on the brink of revolutionizing data orchestration. Everyone pulled long hours, sacrificed weekends. Drank the Kool-Aid. Andy was more than a CEO. He was the visionary, the builder. The reason half of them joined in the first place. So when that vision cracked, and not because of a product failure or financial loss, but because of a kiss caught on camera, it felt like a violation, not just of company values, but of trust. An engineer named Colleen said it best in a now deleted Reddit thread. It's not even the affair. It's that the man preaching integrity every town hall couldn't follow his own script. There were others, too. A junior PM posted anonymously. Imagine getting a pip from the head of HR who was sleeping with the CEO the whole time. Wasn't just a scandal anymore. It was hypocrisy. Meanwhile, Andy's personal life collapsed in eerie parallel to his professional one. Neighbors said Megan Kerrigan, his wife of 12 years, moved out less than a week after the Coldplay incident. She was seen packing bags into the back of a rental SUV with her sister. No screaming, no drama. Just movement like someone trying to get out of a burning building with what little she could salvage. Her social media gone, deactivated across the board. Friends stopped tagging her in posts. Mutual connections quietly unfriended Andy. Divorce paperwork hadn't been filed yet, or at least not publicly, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. You don't come back from a betrayal played on loop for 50 million people. Especially not when two kids are involved. And as for Kristen, nobody really knew. She'd gone dark. No tweets, no photos, no statements. Some sources claimed she fled to California to stay with family. Others said she was seeking legal advice to protect her severance. A few rumors floated about her reaching out to crisis PR firms, but nothing confirmed. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear. She wouldn't be working in tech again anytime soon. Her name had become radioactive. Every Google search, every background check, every investor due diligence report, it would all lead to the same thing. The stadium, the camera, the kiss, the fallout, one event, etched in algorithmic permanence. Chris Martin, the man who unknowingly triggered it all, tried to make light of it again during Coldplay's show in Chicago. During the Kiss Cam segment, he quipped, "Let's keep it PG-13 this time, all right? No corporate exposes, I beg you." The audience laughed, of course. It was innocent again. Joyful, but somewhere backstage, you had to wonder, did he regret saying anything that night in Boston? Did he realize his playful jab had unraveled lives? Or maybe he was just another domino, another voice in a long chain of choices that couldn't be undone. Because that's the thing about viral moments. They don't stay in the stadium. They come home with you. They follow you to work. They slip into court filings. They echo in boardrooms. They haunt in silence. They live longer than apologies. Internally, Astronomer tried to stabilize. Pete DeJoy, now acting CEO, addressed the company in a Zoom town hall 2 weeks later. He kept his voice steady, his words carefully chosen. We've learned a lot from this. About leadership, about accountability, about the power of transparency. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't even particularly memorable, but it was enough to steady the ship. Barely. They instituted new relationship policies, mandatory disclosure, revised ethics guidelines. Some folks called it a band-aid on a severed limb. Others just wanted to move on. And for a while, it looked like they might. The memes faded. The hashtag cooled. Another scandal took over the timeline. Astronomers app got a modest update. Investors returned. But those who were there, the ones who watched it unravel from the inside, knew something permanent had shifted. Not just in the company. In trust. In leadership. In how we see those we follow. Because once someone breaks the fourth wall of professionalism, you can't unsee what's behind it. It all came down to one moment. A kiss on a screen, under stadium lights. Seen by millions. Never meant to happen. But once it did. Nothing, no title, no reputation, no career was safe from what followed. It's a strange thing how fast the world moves on without you. Just days ago, Andy Byron's name dominated headlines, his face frozen mid-turn on millions of screens. But now, the algorithm had moved on. A new celebrity breakup, a tech startup crash, a scandal involving a politician and a yacht. People forgot. The internet didn't, and Andy. He didn't log in again. No LinkedIn, no Medium post, no carefully written apology note ghostwritten by PR, no podcast appearance to own his mistakes and pivot into thought leadership. He just evaporated. And yet, he was everywhere. In the boardrooms of rival startups where HR officers suddenly got more powerful. In the hushed conversations at tech mixers where founders whispered, "Did you hear what happened at Astronomer?" In keynote speeches from ethics officers who used his scandal as a cautionary tale without ever saying his name. They didn't need to. The image was enough. That split-second freeze framed, the one with his hand on Kristen's shoulder, eyes wide, jaw caught mid-smile, had done more damage than any expose ever could. It made people ask questions that couldn't be answered in bullet points or press releases. What did his kids think? What did his employees say behind closed doors? When he looked in the mirror now, what did he see? Kristen, too, had vanished. Not just online, but from every circle she'd ever moved in. Her name was removed from speaking engagements. Her former colleagues quietly retracted their endorsements. One HR Slack community issued a soft but very real warning. If you're asked for a reference, decline. She didn't sue, didn't post a video, didn't try to spin it. She disappeared so fully, it was almost surgical, and that made people even more curious, because when someone runs that fast, what are they running from? Whispers emerged, nothing confirmed, nothing concrete, just little things that she and Andy had been involved for nearly a year, that Megan, Andy's wife, had suspected for months, that there had been incidents before, that this wasn't just an affair. It was a pattern. Of power. Of protection. Of silence. But there was no proof. Just stories. The kind of stories that make you look at your CEO's assistant differently. That make you wonder what late night product planning really means. That make you rethink everything you thought was above board. And the worst part? No one was surprised. Internally, Astronomer was a different company now. Their shiny optimism had dulled. You could feel it in the hallways, or, more accurately, in the Zoom calls where once lively chatter now felt subdued, surgical. Departments were reshuffled. Policies rewritten. An entire cultural audit was underway. Employees were sent surveys. Do you feel safe at work? Do you trust leadership? Have you witnessed inappropriate relationships? The answers came back mixed, but one thing was clear. The myth of invincibility had been shattered. Andy had once been idolized, charismatic, decisive, visionary. The kind of leader people followed into long nights and last-minute launches. But now all those late nights felt questionable. Had he really stayed late to finish the pitch deck? Or was Kristen in his office again? Once doubt creeps in, it never leaves quietly. It lingers in eye contact, in silence during meetings, in the way people now overcorrect their language, overclarify their tone, overexplain their Slack messages just to avoid misinterpretation. It wasn't just a company healing from scandal. It was a company learning how to live with ghosts. And then, one Friday morning, Megan Kerrigan filed for divorce. It wasn't shocking. It wasn't even front-page news anymore, but for those paying attention, it hit like a final exhale. The closing chapter of the life Andy Byron once had. The filing was clinical, irreconcilable differences, but someone leaked part of the custody filing to a tabloid, and it painted a devastating portrait. The children, ages 6 and 9, would stay primarily with Megan. Andy would have supervised visitation until further notice. No overnight stays. No unsupervised time out of state. That said everything. Whatever Andy had lost in public credibility, he lost more in private trust. There was no comeback story. Not now, maybe not ever. One journalist finally reached him 2 weeks later, in a coffee shop in Boulder, Colorado. They didn't even realize it was him at first. He looked different, not thinner, just smaller, like someone who had forgotten how to take up space. He declined to speak on record, but before leaving, he reportedly said one thing: "I just didn't think anyone would notice." That sentence echoed across Slack channels, across Twitter, across editorial rooms, because isn't that the story, really? That a man wealthy, powerful, brilliant sat in a stadium of 55,000 people with his arm around a woman who wasn't his wife, and truly believed he'd blend into the background. That a CEO, a public figure, a brand ambassador, a culture builder, thought he was invisible. It was naive. It was arrogant. It was so very human, because that's what the spotlight does. It doesn't just reveal who you are. It reveals who you pretend not to be. Back in Boston, the Coldplay tour rolled on. Another show, another stadium, another kiss cam. But something changed. The camera didn't linger as long. The jokes were a little softer. The fans cheered a little less. You could feel it, the ripple. What had once been a gimmick now carried a warning. Not because love is shameful, but because secrets don't belong on screens. And when they land there, they don't just go viral. They go permanent. By now, the headlines had faded. The TikTok slowed. The memes moved on. But something lingered. The story, Andy Byron's story, refused to die because it had become something else entirely. It wasn't just gossip anymore. It had mutated into metaphor, a symbol, a case study. The kind professors teach in MBA ethics courses, the kind journalists reference in future exposes, the kind HR departments whisper about in conference rooms when they're trying to explain why new codes of conduct are being rolled out. Because Andy Byron wasn't just a man caught on camera. He was a living, breathing reminder of the line between perception and reality. And what happens when that line is broadcast on a 70-foot jumbotron in front of 55,000 strangers? Inside Astronomer, everything had changed, but nothing had been acknowledged directly. That's the weird part about corporate trauma. No one wants to talk about the body. They just rearranged the furniture around the outline it left behind. The internal Slack channels got quieter. Team meetings became stiffer, more scripted. New hires came in with wide eyes, vaguely aware of what happened, but not brave enough to ask. There was a new chief people officer now. Her first week was filled with rehearsed smiles and empty calendar invites titled Safe Culture Reset. She inherited a mess no one envied, an executive team gutted, a workforce disillusioned, and a brand permanently linked to a Coldplay concert. And yet, somehow, Astronomer survived, because companies don't die from scandal. They die from forgetting what they were supposed to stand for in the first place. Outside the company, think pieces began to take shape. One from Fast Company asked, "Are we asking too much from our CEOs?" Another from The Atlantic countered, "No, we're just asking them not to cheat at concerts." Twitter was a battlefield of bad takes. Some argued Andy was the victim caught in a private moment, punished by a public that thrives on humiliation. Others said Kristen had betrayed her role as HR leader, that she should have known better, done better. Still more looked deeper. Why do we allow power to shield behavior until spectacle strips it away? It wasn't just about Andy anymore. It was about all the people like him, founders, executives, visionaries who live by different rules, who think charm and intelligence and performance excuse everything else, until at DOAS and single quotes until the curtain falls. Until the mic stays on. Until the kiss cam finds you. Then came the panels. At South by Southwest, someone hosted a session called When the Brand Becomes the Scandal. They used Astronomer's silence as a case study in how not to respond One investor whispered, "It's Toronto's light, not fraud, just failure of character. Double quotes harsh. Maybe unfair, but effective, because in a world powered by narrative, perception is capital, and Andy's capital was gone. You want to know the cruelest part? It wasn't the camera. It wasn't even the kiss. It was the joke. Chris Martin unknowingly, innocently made a crack about an affair, and the audience laughed. That laugh is what detonated everything, because without it, maybe the moment would have passed. Maybe no one would have noticed. Maybe Andy and Kristen would have been just another blurry couple, lost in the crowd. But with that joke, people looked closer. The clip hit different. The frame became evidence, because when you laugh, you validate suspicion. And in 2025, suspicion is currency. Eventually, Chris addressed the moment again. It was a short quote in Rolling Stone. "It's strange knowing something I said changed people's lives. I meant it as a joke. I didn't know. I just didn't know. No apology. No deflection. Just honesty," which, ironically, was more than Andy ever gave. Then, in a twist no one expected, Megan, Andy's ex-wife, broke her silence. It wasn't through a press conference, or a tell-all, or even an Instagram story. She posted a Medium article titled, "When the World Sees What You Always Knew." The piece went viral. In it, she never mentioned Andy by name. But she didn't have to. Her words sliced with precision. He wasn't cruel. He was careful. Too careful. The kind of man who never forgot birthdays but always forgot boundaries. Who knew how to kiss your forehead while slowly rewriting reality around you? "I didn't leave because of a concert. I left because I realized the entire marriage had been a performance and I was the only one who didn't know the script. It was raw. Elegant. Devastating. And for the first time since the stadium lights dimmed, the public felt something beyond schadenfreude. They felt empathy. But not for Andy. Never again for Andy. He became the man everyone feared becoming. The executive who thought he was untouchable. The husband who gambled love for secrecy. The leader who let charisma mask rot. And all of it unraveled. Not because of a whistleblower or a journalist, but because of a camera doing its job and a pop star telling a joke. There's poetry in that. Brutal. Unforgiving. But honest. Because in the end, that's what scandal is. Truth leaking through the cracks of control. And once it gets out, no PR team in the world can plug it. The stage is empty now. The confetti's long been swept. The cameras have stopped recording. The hashtags have cooled. The algorithms have moved on. There's a new scandal trending. There always is. But for Andy Byron, the show never really ended. He lives in the aftermath. In the shadow. In the stillness that follows 1,000 headlines, people assume the worst part is being exposed. But that's just the beginning. The true punishment the one no trending topic can replicate is what comes after. The quiet, the loneliness, the moment when there's no crowd to perform for. And you have to sit alone with the version of yourself the world finally saw. Andy tried to rebuild. He reached out to a few investors, quietly, privately, asked about advising startups, fractional founder roles. Everyone was polite, gracious, even, but the doors stayed closed. The industry remembered. Even if no one said it out loud. One VC told a friend, "He's still brilliant, sure. But the optics, untouchable. You can survive product failure. You can recover from market crash. You can pivot from bad ideas, but a moral implosion." One played on stadium screens and replayed in millions of living rooms. That sticks. It becomes your brand. Forever. Kristen resurfaced briefly 6 months later in a wellness retreat in Oregon. Someone spotted her at a silent meditation camp. She didn't speak to anyone. Didn't even introduce herself. Just wrote KC on the sign-in sheet and kept to herself. Another woman from the retreat posted about it afterward. There was a sadness in her stillness. Not guilt, just exhaustion. Like someone who'd been screaming for months and finally ran out of breath. Kristen never returned to HR, never spoke publicly, never sued, never wrote a Medium post. She just disappeared. Some said that was cowardice. Others said it was mercy. Meghan Kerrigan finalized the divorce in early spring. The court documents were clinical, property divided, custody assigned, no alimony, just silence. She changed her last name back, started a new consulting firm focused on leadership integrity, of all things. Booked a few speaking gigs. Her first keynote was titled, "What Integrity Is It?" She never named her ex-husband. She didn't have to. She stood there calm and radiant as she told a room full of aspiring leaders, the most dangerous lie isn't the one you tell others. It's the one you convince yourself is harmless. And just like that, the last ember of Andy Byron's redemption flickered out. Astronomer. It survived, maybe even thrived. With Pete DeJoy at the helm, the company quietly shifted focus, launched new partnerships, landed a major enterprise client in Q3. The scandal wasn't forgotten, but it stopped defining them. Employees said the culture actually got better. More transparent, less performative. One intern, now promoted to full-time, wrote in a Glassdoor review, "It feels like we all went through a fire. And what came out was leaner, smarter, and a little less arrogant." That's the funny thing about collapse. Sometimes it clears out the rot. And what about Coldplay? They kept touring, sold out shows, stadiums bigger than Boston. Chris Martin never mentioned the affair again, not directly. But at a show in Dublin, right before launching into Fix You, he paused and said something that felt aimed at ghosts. Sometimes the light shines where you least expect it. And what it shows you isn't always beautiful, but it's always true. The crowd cheered, but somewhere, someone watching from a phone screen felt a different kind of chill. Years passed, people stopped Googling Andy's name. The Kiss Cam clip vanished from trending tabs. New scandals rose, burned hot, and disappeared faster. That's how digital fireworks, hot, bright, forgettable. But some images stay with us, not because of what they showed, but because of what they revealed. The couple on the screen, the hesitation, the forced smile, the joke, the crowd's laughter, and the split second when intimacy became evidence. There's no moral here, no big redemption, no final act where the CEO apologizes and wins back the company. This isn't a comeback story, it's a warning. Because power isn't just about money or titles or influence, it's about invisibility. The belief that you can act without consequence, that your secrets are protected by your success, that the rules don't apply to you until they do. And when they do, they don't just break you, they expose you. Somewhere in another stadium, another kiss cam is rolling. People are laughing, cheering, blowing kisses to the screen. And maybe, just maybe, someone's holding a secret they think no one will ever see. But the screen sees everything, and the screen never blinks. So what do we take from this? Maybe it's that the truth always finds light, sometimes in a courtroom, sometimes in a company memo, and sometimes in front of 55,000 strangers and a stadium jumbotron. Maybe it's that power doesn't make you untouchable, that no matter how high you climb, you're never above the fallout of your own choices, that every quiet compromise, every whisper behind closed doors is just one spotlight away from becoming your legacy. Because when the music fades, when the crowd goes home, when the cameras stop rolling, what's left isn't the show. It's who you were when you thought no one was watching, and someone is always watching. Always. If this story gripped you, if it made you pause, made you reflect, or made you uncomfortable, good. That means it mattered. Hit the like button if you want more real stories with raw truth. Subscribe if you're ready for deeper, darker tales where reality is stranger than fiction. And let us know in the comments. What would you have done if you were in that stadium watching someone's entire life collapse in real time? We read every word. Until next time, stay sharp, stay human. And remember, the camera's always rolling.